Okay, so I want to take a couple of minutes and just make sure that everyone is fully understanding the verbal assessment process. So I want to start with the purpose of the process. So the purpose is for me to gain an understanding of what it is you really know. And the best way for us to do that in this current learning environment is for us to have a one-on-one conversation so that I know you understand the content in a genuine and authentic way. And right now, we just don't have access to really high quality testing sites. So this is, what we're going to do. Necessity is the mother of invention. So I do want to take you through the rubric and I want to take you through some sample questions. All right, so let's take a look. We're going to start with the emerging. So emerging, this is basically you understanding the definition of the terms that are presented in this unit. So that essentially you can define all of these terms and either be able to identify, like if I give you the definition, you can say, oh, that's containment. Or if I ask you to define containment, that you would successfully be able to do that. Sample questions in this category might be, what was the Marshall Plan? What was the policy of containment? What was the GI Bill of Rights? And I've got a typo there, so let's fix that. That should be a question mark. The next section I want to take a look at is developing. So developing, some of the, the definitions, so you know all of the emerging. And now you can take those definitions and start to do things with those definitions. So for example, you can take all of the terms and put them in correct chronological order, so correct order by time. You can locate and label information on a map. So I might ask you, where are the satellite nations, for example? I may ask you to categorize the Cold War events as being either foreign or domestic. So remember, foreign being outside the US, and domestic is inside the US. All right, let's take a look at some of the sample questions for developing. So to successfully answer these questions, you would have to know the emerging. So you have to know the definitions of terms in order to answer developing questions. So I might ask you, put the following events in chronological order: containment, McCarthyism, and the GI Bill of Rights. I might ask you, again, where are the satellite nations? And then provide you a list of 3 events, and you have to tell me which ones are foreign and which ones are domestic. Zoom back out. Let's take a look at proficient. So proficient means that you're doing really, really well with this material, and that you know most of it. You don't really need a whole lot of prompting for me, and you know not just the definition of the terms, but you can also answer the how and the why questions. So how did something happen? Why did something happen? So you would be able to tell me how the communist victory in the Chinese Civil War was a failure of the Truman Doctrine and leads to the Korean War. So there's also some causation in these questions. So explaining how the Second Red Scare and McCarthyism represents a change in domestic behavior, some sample questions that you would have to answer in this category. Might be, why was the Civil War viewed as a failure of containment, and what was the result of the National Defense and Interstate Highways Act? So what happened? So this law got passed, you know what it is, because it happened. What happened next, or what was the effect of it? Another thing I want to point out with particularly proficient is that you have to successfully answer the emerging questions and the developing questions in order to move on to this category. So I'm going to start with the definitions. I'm going to move to the categorizing of chronological order, where things are, foreign, domestic, before I move to the proficient. So once you are able to demonstrate to me that you fully understand the how and why of the terms, you are going to then move on to the distinguished category. So this is, you know, this information cold, you know it like the back of your hand, and you know it so well that you can evaluate it. And evaluate essentially means that I can make judgments. I have an opinion about this information. I can tell you if I think that containment was a good policy or a bad policy, and I can explain to you with evidence why I think that. So it's not just saying, yes, it's good or yes, it's bad. Yes, it was a positive policy because. No, it was a negative policy because. A sample question that you might see in this category would be evaluate the effectiveness of Truman's foreign policy during the Cold War. Support your judgment with historical evidence. So again, what I'm looking for with this type of question is, yes, it was because, or no, it was bad or negative. Because, all right, so you're basically you know the information well enough to take a position on it, like as if you were in a debate. So think about those questions that way. So again, your verbal assessment. So just a couple of things to remember about your verbal assessment. It is going to be about 15 minutes. You know what? I don't really like that marker, so we're going to get rid of that. Beautiful thing about iPads these days. All right, so it is going to be about, oh, that's much easier to see, about 15 minutes. The first set of questions are going to be from the emerging category. Your second set of questions will come from developing. Your third set of questions will come from proficient. And then your fourth will come from distinguished. All right, be on time. If you are not on time, you may lose your slot and have to reschedule. Okay. All right. So I look forward to talking to you guys individually. Make sure that you prepare fully. And if the terms are not on this rubric, I'm not going to ask you about them. However, if you want to use terms outside of the rubric to defend your position and distinguish, you're certainly welcome to do that. So this video is going to be posted in multiple places. Please make sure that you watch this. If you have questions after you have watched this video, please feel free to reach out.